You're listening to a podcast of The Mojo with Steph Renee. Weekdays 10 a.m. till noon on 900 AM WURD.com.
Recorded live at BBC Radio when Jazmine Sullivan, Philadelphia's own Jazmine Sullivan, was still a student at Kappa. When you hear that maturity in her voice, you got to understand how long Jazmine has sounded like that. This is back when Mike and I used to see each other regularly at the 5 spot for Black Lily, when Jazmine was a regular at Black Lily, singing these songs and establishing herself in her career. And that was the original crew that we used to see her singing with.
I could see them, you know.
Yeah, when you hear this, and just appreciate, there's a clip that has been recirculating on social media of Jazmine at the Apollo for Apollo Kids.
You know, when she was 11.
11, yes, singing.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of stuff. You ever see the clip of her playing the Lion in the Wiz?
In the Wiz, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and of course, Reelblack has a lot of early Jazmine Sullivan stuff on
right. She was one,
channel.
When I first opened Soul Sanctuary as a venue, she was one of the first artists that we have featured on stage there. Shout out to my good buddy Tiffany Bacon and bringing Inner City to the live stage at the venue.
Now she's ripping it at Justice for Flint.
Yeah, I mean, she's done a lot of growing. Unfortunately, stiff competition at the Grammys, so she didn't get a chance to walk home with a Grammy for Reality Show, which I think is a brilliant album. But this whole idea of how we watch people evolve in their careers, in their statements about who they are as an artist, and the drama that they have to deal with just to be able to stand in this cultural space and try to do what they do.
Definitely, it's tough being an artist. Just to remind folks, we just spoke with H.M. Coakley, who's the writer, director, producer of Adulterers, and we're giving away a copy of that movie on Reelblack.com this weekend. So
excellent.
So but the Oscars, did you watch? I mean, it was very low rated.
No.
You were one of the people.
Completely tuned out. Didn't watch 1 second of it.
Did you go back and watch the monologue?
Of course.
Okay.
And shared it on the air so that we could talk about it earlier this week on the show.
You guys talked about it already.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, I think it's important because there's been a lot of people have very mixed feelings about it. I don't think it's overwhelmingly one way or the other. There are people who took particular offense to the idea that you could make a joke around lynching.
Right.
And that you would even, offer it in that venue. As opposed to the people who were like, he should have been there because he should have been on that stage. He'd earned the right to host the Oscars, and he's funny.
Right.
And that he created a monologue that could play in that audience and not disinvite him from being engaged in those kinds of things forever and ever. Amen. I think sometimes people are a little unrealistic about what it takes to survive in the entertainment industry. And that doesn't mean you have to sell yourself completely out, but you got to pick your battles. Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think he jabbed. He got a few punches in that were on point and very truthful. He might have stepped on a few people's toes, but he wasn't out to bite the hand that feeds him either. So I think he pulled back on the sorority thing. It's cliquish, but that's indicative of the whole thing, which is systemic racism, and how do you break down these barriers?
Right.
How do you make the films that we all pay to see have casts and characters and stories that we can all relate to, that reflect parts of what the diversity that we see within our culture, the way the culture's changed.
Right. And while I may not have been, rah-rah cheering everything that he said in that opening monologue, I think the monologue coupled with some of the skits that happened later in the show that I have not seen at all are really what people took particular offense with. Right. They said he played on some other stereotypes of Asians in particular that just kind of undermined the idea of how you stand in that space as a black man given this year of controversy and are kind of righteous in the way that
Dash thing just completely fell flat.
Oh, that was awful. That was awful.
Yeah.
The fact that she agreed to do it
Right.
says a lot about her.
Right.
But the fact that he even tried to create
like
that.
casting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is a conversation we can continue with
Yes.
our next guest who's on the line. Philly native, West Oak Lane, in the
Nice.
building. Tommy Oliver, and I don't know. Have you spoken to Tommy before? Like,
Haven't we spoken with Tommy on the show before?
I believe so. We were working. Hey, Tommy.
Hello, we did speak before. We spoke about The Perfect Guy.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I before we jump into 1982, I have to ask you this thing on Time Magazine. You were quoted as saying The Perfect Guy is not a black film; it's a black film with 3 leads. Did I get that right?
No, it's a film with 3 black leads.
Okay. So clarify that for me. Like, I just want you to take a minute because I felt like it was a black film. So. But then the whole ad campaign about that was sort of, no, it's for a wider audience. So,
Well, it's for me, I think there's room for movies that are specifically black films and movies that are a bit more universal that happen to have black actors. And so the idea of the sort of movies that I like to make are movies that are representative of us, that have us in them, but aren't necessarily contained to a limited scope. And so, if you think about the characters in The Perfect Guy, those characters could have been any race, and they really could have, and so that's what I really meant. And so it's not sort of thinking about the ways in which we're typically portrayed, which usually aren't positive. And I was like, you've got Sanaa's character, who's a very successful lobbyist. You've got Michael's character, who's an incredibly intelligent IT specialist. And just these sort of ways in seeing these characters that are real and developed and progressive.
okay. Well, fair enough. We're not here to debate. But is 1982 a black film or a film with black people in it?
I guess we are here to debate. So for me, it's not a black film, and it's an interesting sort of dichotomy and mix, because if you look at me, my friends, what I do, I've got a very diverse set of people that I'm around. Mm-hmm. And you look at what I read, you look at what I've done, you look at where I've been. And so for me, it's about sort of representing my experiences authentically. And that said, I do want to represent us well, and I want to represent us correctly. And so a big part of this movie was about having a strong black father figure, a strong black male in the house fighting for his family. And so that was completely intentional. At the same time, it's a story that deals with family and fatherhood, and those things are universal. And so, it's not limited to the black community. The same sort of things for people who deal with addiction. You could look at any place from the backcountry of West Virginia through the metropolises across the country. And so it's just about family and fatherhood for me at the core.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say, the choice of Hill Harper playing the lead is one that I will always co-sign, as Mike and I have discussed before. No, he's been the leading man in some of my favorite independent films, like Loving Jezebel, like Love, Sex, and Eating the Bones. I mean, Half Plenty. So, so many different kind of experiences with him jumping into these roles and bringing a sense of maturity and humanity into these spaces. And clearly that was something that you needed to have in the lead role of this film.
Very much so. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, no, it's all right. So it's not a black film, but it's a great film, and it's out now from Code Black Entertainment, and it's on DVD, VOD, all the places that you get to see movies, and again, shot here in Philadelphia with Hill Harper, Ruby Dee in her last role. What how did that come about? Getting Ruby on board, and what was it like to work with the Queen?
It was a bit surreal. I was talking with my casting director, Signa Miguel, and we're talking about character who's based off of my grandmother. And I said somebody like Ruby Dee, and he was like, "Sure, we can go after her." And I was like, And I was just sort of like talking about somebody like her. And he was like, well, let's give it a shot. And then we did, and we offered her the role. And lo and behold, she said yes.
Wow.
She was the very first person to become attached to the movie, and it really changed things for both me and the film, because having her essentially give her stamp of approval changed the perception of the film and changed sort of the positioning of it in the marketplace. And so I will forever be grateful to her. And then when we got to set, it was an incredible experience because, at that point, she was just a living legend. Like, absolutely incredible. And so to be in her presence, to be able to just have a conversation with her, like, she was telling firsthand stories about her and Malcolm X and all these things that she did and went through. And it was crazy. I remember one day we were shooting in a diner. The scene ultimately got cut, but we only had enough money to close half the diner, and the other half, it's a low budget film.
No. I love the idea of you sharing the realities of what it takes to get these films done. That's great.
And so half the diner was filled with patrons. We had the other half. And then when we were done shooting and she got up and she was walking out, when people realized who she was, literally every single person in the diner rose to their feet and gave her a standing ovation as she was walking out.
Beautiful.
And it was just that sort of experience because it's like, oh my gosh, this is Miss Ruby Dee.
Wow. Now, I had a chance to visit the set when you were filming, but I wasn't there a day that Miss Ruby was there. But, just an amazing cast, amazing cultures, just the pride of Philly in my respects. But, so we're... Also, okay.
I really, really enjoyed the BTS piece that you cut.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that can be seen on the YouTube channel for Reelblack. I had it sitting. I'm glad it came out well because it was tight. It was just excitement. There was so much excitement. You have to understand. Tommy shot the movie in the house that he grew up in, on the block that he lived in. So it's just all kinds of energy there. But we were talking about Hollywood. I mean, what did you make of?
Oh, wait, we should take a moment though. BTS, for ladies and gentlemen, behind the scenes.
Okay.
Just, there's jargon that's like we all understand. That I'm like, oh wait, explain. Okay, now continue.
Well, all right, so we got 2 minutes before the break. So, but we want you to come back after the break. But what were your thoughts about the Oscars this year? The Oscar speech, Oscars so white, all that good stuff.
I didn't watch them.
Okay.
So I don't really have anything to say.
He was checking something else out like I was.
You didn't go back and watch the monologue or anything? What are you... So...
I didn't watch a thing at all.
Okay. Do you feel connected to the industry in any kind of way? What needs to change so that we don't have this hashtag next year?
So I think it's a problem that's bigger than just the Oscars, and I think the Oscars, they're doing or trying to make changes, and so kudos to them. But I think it's a big part of it is like if we really want to make sure that we are considered, we need to figure out how to make more movies that have us in them from the start. And so, it's sort of like you look at the people who are greenlighting movies, you look at the people who are writing these movies and are putting these movies together. And so it's like when we get to the end of the year, it's like the problem is you think about white actors specifically, they've got so many more at-bats. Mm-hmm. And so even if, let's say they have 100 actors who are, up for potential noms, if 20 of them get it, 80 of them didn't. We don't focus on the 80, we focus on the 20. But if we've got 5 at-bats, between all of the actors and actresses, and then they don't show up, then it's a problem with us because we're not represented. But we need to figure out how to get the industry to make sure that we have more people with roles that are significant to be considered. And so once we do that, then I think we'll be in a better position. But if we have a year where we have fantastic performances from Forrest Whitaker and Jamie Foxx and Will Smith and Idris Elba and Michael Ealy and Chiwetel and all these other fantastic actors, and then they don't get nominated, then that's a giant problem, giant problem, and not just one that's sort of speaking to the systemic issues that are at the beginning of the pipeline.
Amen to that. So we're chatting with Tommy Oliver, who is the writer, producer, director of the film 1982, which is out now on Code Black, Lionsgate. And
yes, and we're going to take a quick break and come back and continue our conversation as we expand our idea of how arts and culture plays a larger part in the movements that we see happening all around us, and how we can engage more for people to understand how much it is knit together. This is Real Black Radio here on the Mojo on 900 AM WURD. We'll continue in a moment. That is the soulful, spiritual house sound of Kenny Bobian from his greatest hits collection called Defined. That, of course, is from the biblical verse. And it says, I shall not be moved. That's a shout out to Nadine Patterson, who, when I first played house music here on the show, was like, please more, please more. And so I got you covered today, Nadine, if you're tuned in for sure. This is Stephanie Renee along with Mike Dennis here in the studio. And we've got Tommy Oliver on Skype joining us for this edition of Real Black Radio.
Hey, Tommy. So, yeah, the professor, Charles Woods, he shouts it out. He's a big fan as well. So, continue the conversation. So, I think ultimately the goal is for us all to be able to make movies that are truthful to our human experience. But there certainly is a prejudice in terms of when you decide to have a movie with a majority Black cast, you come into different marketing considerations. You know, what were some of the issues that you may have faced in terms of getting 1982 out to the public?
You know, it's there are a lot of problems. You know, for the most part. All right, I'll take a step back.
Okay.
About 2/3 of the audiences who have seen 1982 are white, actually. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's, if you look at the audiences from, I don't know, the Toronto Film Festival to Austin Film Festival to a whole bunch of these other festivals, the majority has been white. Yet for the marketplace for distributors, it's, hey, this is a Black film. And sort of like what you said. And it's like, there's no problem with us taking ownership, because I am a Black person and I do very much care about us and our experience and us being represented in that way. But it's more like there are more audiences for this film. It's again a film about family, a film about fatherhood. And so I think for me, one of the big problems is that if you say that this is only a Black film and you pigeonhole it as only a Black film, and then it doesn't do any business outside of the Black audience, and then they say, see, I told you it was a Black film. Well, no, it's actually a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, if you actually let other people know this film exists and you push it just a little bit, guess what? There's a business case, because the movie will make money there and people will patronize it. And so I think for me, that's been one of the biggest problems, because I've been in these audiences, I've had these conversations, and I know how the film is perceived. And
well, that's exactly my feeling when I had a chance to see it again at Image Nation screening a few weeks ago. I said, wow, this movie had white people in it. It would have found a place in the theatrical realm. You know, would not be making its debut so many years later on DVD. And I think that's unjust. I really want people to seek this movie out. But right. And Gina Prince Bythewood, more things in terms of the marketing of her film, Beyond the Lights.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you feel about the context that Don Cheadle recently gave the new film Miles Ahead? You know, saying that this was something that the family wanted to do for years, and legitimately, until they crafted a way to put a white character in a space where the funders could look at this and go, oh, you know, we're somehow a part of this story, that it seemed like they weren't going to get what they needed in order for that film to be made.
The unfortunate thing is, in this market, it's an absolute truth. Like, it is. It's like when you're putting movies together, when you're trying to figure out how to raise financing, when you're thinking about what the marketing and distribution of that film will look like, it's a necessity. It's a box that very often needs to be checked. Otherwise, you are, to a certain degree, dooming your film for failure, or for a much smaller sort of life than it would have otherwise.
Mm. Well, was there any consideration? I know 1982 is a very personal story. Was there any consideration to do those kind of things in terms of packaging your film and putting your cast together?
No, it wasn't. It's like, for me, it's like, it's got to feel right. It's got to be authentic. And I would rather do something that feels authentic and that winds up being a little bit of a smaller movie than to compromise it. And or at least try to be able to do that. You know, it's not as easy as you move into making bigger movies, because the money is a lot more difficult to come by. And so as much as I can, I will try to make sure the stories are authentic, and continuing to find stories sort of like The Perfect Guy, which has white actors in it, and those are organically sort of fit into the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, and how does it feel? I mean, we talk so often about this idea of being able to tell our stories, and when you are financing this out of pocket for the most part, it's an opportunity to introduce the world to new talented actors. You had seasoned veterans as a part of your cast, and still felt this same kind of pressure in terms of how the film is packaged, marketed, who people perceive the audience to be. It's just not easy. There are so many things that go into it. And also, it's not to say that, I don't appreciate what Lionsgate and Code Black have done. And so that's not to say that at all, but it's just it's a difficult thing to appropriately get through. Right.
Well, I mean, the reviews are there. So, I mean, I ran into you at Sundance as well. I mean, what were your impressions of this year's fest? Did you have a chance to see Birth of a Nation or any films that you think are going to stand out this year?
Unfortunately, I was only there for 2.5, 3 days and didn't get a chance to see any movies, but I've got a lot of friends who had movies there, and I was so happy for them. I'm so happy for Nate, and we were hanging out like maybe the day before his premiere and the day before that, and he was really just cautiously optimistic, and for what happened up there was just incredible. For him to have his labor of love wind up at $17.5 million is just incredible and an honor to watch. And then there's another buddy of mine, Stephen Cable, who did The Land, just another talented guy, and then Southside with You, and there were lots of good films that represented us up there, amongst other films, but I was really proud of those films.
So, I mean, are things changing? I mean, in the few years that you've been making films, do we have to do it independently, or is a lane opening up within the studio system for our stories to be told?
With machines as big as the ones we're dealing with, change is always slow. But things like Oscar So White, they are making a little bit of a difference. And even if it's nothing more than seeing somebody like J.J. Abrams making the statement that he's made publicly about wanting to have more women, more people of color being sent to him, both for roles and for projects that he's produced, like that's a giant thing. J.J. Abrams is one of the biggest people in this industry. And so, to have that, something that's on the forefront of, just conversation, it's big. How much that will actually translate into, throughout the industry remains to be seen. But, you do have these sort of roles like Idris in the new Stephen King adaptation.
Sorry,
I know.
I don't mean to exclaim like that, but I'm so excited about the fact that he's playing the main character, not the evil character where we get a chance to, play off of the black and white, but that he's playing Roland DeChain. That's going to be so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, these sorts of things where it's colorblind casting, it's like, that role in no world was written black.
No.
But, you got somebody who's a powerhouse actor, and it's like, let me just think about who the best actor for this is, not, who the best actor who is white is. And so I think those sorts of things are good, but it's a slow process. But, you've got to realize that there's a problem in order to address it. And so I think it's very hard for the industry at this point to say that, I just didn't know about that. I just didn't think about that.
Right. So change is affecting. And of course, if more quality work gets out there, it's a two-way street. We've got to create good work also.
Yeah.
We can't always just settle for Barbecue Chicken, the movie.
Oh my goodness, stop.
Hey, look, I copyrighted that, I copyrighted that. That was a screenplay. I worked 5 years on Barbecue Chicken, the movie.
That doesn't mean it was a good idea.
Well, Tommy Oliver, what are you working on next? And I hope don't steal my idea. I hope it's not Barbecue Chicken the movie. But what are you working on next, and how can people keep up with you?
Baby Back Ribs, the sequel. No, I'm writing a couple of things which are going well. I'm producing a handful of very fun things with my wife, which has been fun. Trying to nail down what the next thing I'm going to direct is. Also, my wife and I are doing a documentary, which is going really well, called Black Love. We're about 55 interviews in, and we're interviewing Black and interracial couples and looking at what it takes for them to make it work as a married couple. Wow. And that's been really good, especially for me as a fairly newlywed. We've been married for a year. Okay. Just be able to listen to people. Thank you. Who have gone through a lot of what married couples go through and really try to break it down. And so that's something I'm really, really excited about.
Excellent.
Okay, so, and it's not on Netflix yet, but where can we find 1982?
It's on DVD, on demand, on iTunes, on Amazon, on Vudu, at Walmart. It's around.
Yeah. Well, I'm really proud of you. I mean, I know it's your labor of love, and I don't think it could have come out any better. And I really enjoy the film. I'm proud to own it. So I want people to go out and see it.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. I really appreciate your continued support. I really do.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to a podcast of The Mojo with Steph Renee. Weekdays, 10 a.m. till noon. Follow us on your favorite social media like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for up-to-the-minute information at 900 AM WURD.